Hey now, Deadheads. Dr. KOBA back after a long layoff of going over some shows from our continuing review of the 60 CD 60th anniversary box set, Enjoying the Ride, The Grateful Dead. So, I just saw Trey Anastasio here this week in Des Moines at the Valor Ballroom, and it was an amazingly good show. Trey looked like he was having the time of his life. One of the greatest guitar players ever. Fish, amazing. So, Trey Anastasio was saying that his family's from Des Moines, and he was just jumping up and down, just happy as a clam, and it was amazing to watch. And great band, everything's awesome. So, we're here to talk about though 1977. Honestly, not a year that I go to in my listening of the Dead. Might not be the one that I gravitate towards the most. Not because it's bad, but because it's so good. They're so into this well-oiled machine of being the Grateful Dead that it has a certain vibe to it that is awesome, but it also, some of it has a little bit too much reverb, and it sounds like they're playing in a cave a little bit. And the Betty boards, like, they're all great. It all has a very specific sound and very good. Not, it's all A-level stuff for the most part, like, and it's all highly covered. So I like a little bit more of the diamonds in the rough sometimes. When you get, when you eat a meal a lot, sometimes you want things that are sweet and sour. You want things that are unexpected. And unfortunately, also recently Donna, Jean Gottschall, had passed away. So rest in peace. I think she gets a lot of heat for a couple specific things that happened in 1972 to 1974, where in playing in the band, she has a huge yell scream that, it doesn't translate well on the tape so many years later, but if you're there, she would have been, pumping you up a little bit. And her vocals, her styling, her melding with Bob and Jerry, and just the general vibe, she was very much needed and very much should. Her range was great. She's a great singer, and she brought a lot. And you'd have to be a pretty tough lady in a male-dominated world of hippies and music to hold your own. And I think she did that, and I think that she deserves a lot of respect and a lot of love. So I think Donna's great, and that's why I wanted to hear 1977. We're here in March 20th, 1977. We're at the storied Winterland Ballroom. Storied is one word to call it. The Grateful Dead played Winterland around 6 times, the second highest number of performances at any venue aside from the Oakland Coliseum. They had been playing Winterland since March 1967, and they played through 12/31/78, the closing Winterland, which is about one of the greatest things that they ever did. It was the Dead's primary Bay Area home. Even when the Dead were frequently playing the Carousel Ballroom or the Fillmore West and the Fillmore Auditorium, they were playing the much larger and yet still quite small Winterland Arena. Once these smaller venues closed, however, Winterland was their true home. Countless monumental shows took place at Winterland, including the 5-night run in October '74 that signaled the end of the band for a 2-year hiatus, which turned into the Grateful Dead movie. The From Egypt with Love shows in October '78, road trips and all that, and the aforementioned closing Winterland, the final show there by any band. So there's Dave's notes. This one was really good. I thought it, my 77 fatigue and 5/8/77 and all that, like, there's fatigue along with it. The Terrapin Station's a great record. These songs are all great. They're all singing, playing at the highest level that they probably ever get as a band before Donna and Keith leave. So we get an awesome rock opening, 70s blues rock, New Minglewood blues opener. They're full of power. They're full of verb, and they are in so control of what they are as the Grateful Dead that they could just move their fingers and it would be amazing. And so, Bobby's Blues slide solo sounds good, and we slide on into Ramble on Rose, which is a weird second song to have in the second slot for Jerry, because it's kind of a slower one, but it has a awesome groove to it. And bouncing, pulling taffy on the boardwalk, as I think it says in one of the in another 77 box set, the first one from 1977, which is the week after May 1977, which maybe someday we'll get to reviewing those as well. Those are good shows, but they all sound like they're playing in a cave until they get to like Alabama, and there's like one show in there that's just like the best thing in the month. And then they go to, Dick's Picks 29, which is 522, somewhere in Pensacola. Either way, it's the one that's in Florida, and it's Dick's Picks 29. That is about one of my greatest things ever, and I should review that one and go back, because that turned me into a hardcore Deadhead. Those two shows in there are so fucking good, you couldn't imagine. They're just amazing, and they top these. And this is a really good show too. It just wouldn't have been one that stands on its own in release type of thing. We get into El Paso, Deal. Thankfully, Deal isn't as coked out as it is in 1978, where they just keep chanting, "Don't let that deal go down," like 50 times. They're just not that coked out yet. They are coked out, but it's just they're in total zone control of who they are. We get to a Cassidy, which is really beautiful and has a really good jam in it. Really interesting, but it's brief, but it has the makings of where Cassidy will go, and it's just Jerry's playing some very beautiful lines. El Paso too. The little fingering. He's setting the scenes with what Bobby's perfect storytelling of the setting in the desert and the story of El Paso. It's perfect. Then we get in I heard this Peggy O a couple times. This disc kept playing a couple times because it goes down so well. It's just flow, and that's all it is. It's flow. They're tapping into a flow, and they're not. They're oars. If you imagine going downriver, they're hitting all the easy water, and they're just floating. And anything they pick, it's floating. And this Peggy O just floats. Jerry forgets some lyrics and has to kind of figure out how he's going to say the lyrics, but the playing is so good and so sure that it doesn't matter. He's just going with the flow. It's total flow state. And then to sort of put a fine pin on that flow state, they go into Beat It On Down the Line with the weird bump bump bump. They kind of don't know where they're going with how many of them. They're just sort of flowing with it. They're having fun. They're in front of all these people, and they're family, and they've played this place so many times that they could play whatever they want, which is a good version of Beat On Down the Line too. It's fun to see. We get Brown Eyed Women. Jerry's back into storytelling mode with his guitars speaking, and he's just the greatest guitar player on the night on that stage, along with the greatest band that they have ever. So they all sound so good. We get a weird ending to this set, which I don't know where the set break is here. It doesn't make any sense. The way that they've structured things is it's still up in the air. So we get a estimated Scarlet, which is worth the price of admission with the on the first disc. And the Scarlet not going into fire is so weird, but so cool. And the estimated has all the vibe, all the Mootron, all the W, flowiness that goes along with it. Awesome. Bobby's doing well. His screeching is great. The Scarlet is awesome. It jazzes, it jams, it has a flow to it. And the fact that it doesn't go into Fire on the Mountain means that duet between Jerry and Donna, where she sort of sings lines, scats lines along with Jerry, which should have continued on a little bit more, is great. She's great. She's in fine voice this night too. Keith also, he is turned himself into the scaffolding. He just is there, and when he plays, it's perfectly pitched. He does what's necessary for the song always. He's not there to show that he's a great piano player, and he is, at that point in time before his untimely death and all that. He doesn't call attention to himself. He just is his perfect, where he chooses to come in and chooses to go out and chooses to play or not to play are the perfect choices for what's happening in the song. He cares about the music and not showing a bunch of virtuosity that he could. So he's just perfectly pitched for the band at this point in time. And then we get into disc 2. So Rockin', Samson, and Delilah, we pretty much have almost all. If they played Passenger on this show, you'd almost have all and Dancing in the Street. You'd pretty much have all of Terrapin Station as a album. So you have Rockin', Samson, and Delilah. They're getting into it. It's rockin'. It's rockin' good stuff. I love the fact that Road Jimmy comes next, and it really made me really remember how great that song is. Like, I've forgotten how good Road Jimmy is. It just floats. They float down here and at Winterland, and even Bob's slide solo doesn't go into off-keyness, so it's awesome. They take that flowy and then they turn into rockin' with Promised Land, some Chuck Berry rock. Then we get into the meat of the show, which is a run of Saint Stephen, Other One, Stella Blue, which ends the whole disc. But the Saint Stephen's all grooved out. It's not necessarily rocking like dun 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 dun. No, it's more dun 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 dun. There's more of a groove happening. It's much more groovy. They might not remember how some of that part goes, but they're the greatest band in the world, and so they could just fix it in one bar. They get into this very interesting other one where this is where all the tiny nuances and little arpeggios, and Jerry's just playing these awesome, beautiful guitar arpeggio, these very long scale lines, and they all sort of are creating a song that doesn't exist, and they're doing it within this framework. And here Keith again is perfect. What he plays supports Jerry perfectly. Jerry hits into this song that doesn't exist, this melody that doesn't exist, and it's creation, it's pure form, and it sort of crystallizes down into Stella Blue, which is another perfectly pitched idea in the all flow. And I would call it the highlight of the show. I thought the first disc was all so money that it would be hard to say, but Other One, Stella Blue, so good. They know what they're doing. They know who they are, and they can turn it on or off. They are the puppet masters, and the people dancing are the puppets on the string. It's like fish. They choose the tempo of the party. They want it up, they want it down, they want to slow it down, they want to heat it up. They do whatever they want. They're perfect. And it goes into disc 3. Around and Around, the cops are knocking on the door. 1978 is where Around and Around hits its peak of being a good jam vehicle, a good vehicle for Bobby to be Bobby and all of that. And then an awesome U.S. blues. We have great rock music, great 70s classic rock, rock guitar. This is, if you ever want to play the Dead for people who aren't into the Dead, this is the stuff that you go to, because it's the most like put together rock music. And then finally we end with Terrapin Station as an encore. Perfectly pitched Terrapin Station. Probably one of the, who knows? I don't have stats. I'm not a statistician in that way. But I do know that on one of the Dave's picks, it's what, like 226.77 is like the first time that Terrapin Station was played live. This has got to be within the first month. It's not even within the first month. So this is Terrapin Station is already a monster. It's already fully formed. They've already know what they've got, and it's played well, played great. So, and it ends the show, which is it's a, a very weird cliff to leave people on, but you know, like a very odd cliff to leave people on, but awesome. It's just, this is A1. They're in their home. They can do no wrong, and they don't. So 320.77. We get a recommendation. You wouldn't be disappointed by putting any of this on. Like any of this is it's all money. It's all great. So DR.KOBA signing off for another one. I got a couple more to do here because we went through a couple, but 320.77, A plus. Like, share, subscribe, leave a comment. I'd love to know what you would think if you're listening to these. If you got to the end, thank you very much.